Welcome to COVID and Climate Change Correlations, a weekly video podcast where I, Daniel Sanderson, engage in a stimulating conversation with post-Keynesian economist Steve Keen. Okay, well, welcome. We got another show with Professor Steve Keen, and today's topic, I actually wanted to talk about behavioral economics. I have a couple assumptions coming into that question and topic for Steve. And then for the balance of the show, I actually wanted to talk about a possibility of a course, which I've brought up before, and I have some ideas on how to help Steve along with the course because he's a super busy man.
Fortunately true.
Scott, welcome.
Hi, Scott.
So I was just doing the introduction, and it looks like we're gonna touch base just loosely on behavioral economics, and then I'm gonna bring up a few suggestions on course creation for the good old professor.
Yeah.
So in terms of behavioral economics, I was doing a little bit of research and investigation in terms of other economic schools at universities. And it seems to me that there's a lot of economic departments, especially the economic departments that are in the fringe, so to speak, or where a lot of the upcoming research is focused, in and around behavioral anomalies, and I think that's primarily because it's such a hard topic to pin down. Do you see that in the field at all, Steve, about economics?
Behavioral economics have been around for at least 30 years, and it sort of comes in the work of Carnahan and Tversky some time ago, and of course they got the Nobel Prize for some of that work. To me, the problem with behavioral economics is it takes as the standard behavior what neoclassical call rational. And there's only ever been two rational people. One was Jesus Christ, the other was Nostradamus. When you look at how they define rational, it means people with a capacity for accurate prophecy. That's the shorthand definition of how neoclassicals define rational. And therefore, if you don't have the capacity for accurate prophecy, you're irrational, and let's count the ways in which you're irrational. Well, there's about 137 of those. And then what you do, and I've seen this happen in conferences too, is that behavioral economists will present various ways in which experimental data shows that people's behavior deviates from the norm of rational behavior. And they will then say, well, here's an anomaly, and here's another anomaly, and here's another anomaly. And the neoclassical economists look at it and say, let's just assume rational behavior. So it's the sort of thing that they can take on the chin because it's like being hit by a wet lettuce. And you can continue doing exactly what you were doing beforehand while still nodding, yeah, we take into account behaviorals, et cetera, et cetera. Look at those couple of blokes, maybe a woman down the corridor, maybe a black person, even better. You know, we've got representation here. So it's a nice little excuse. It's like a fur coat for a Neanderthal. It makes them look fashionable.
Oh man, disappointing. Another disappointing rung in the edifice of the economic tradition. I mean, sounds like a lot of blind alleys to me.
It is a lot of blind alleys. I mean, the interesting thing is the basis of it, and I'm going to get stuff this up because I used to be great at numbers on the fly. I'm not anymore. I've just too much time reading neoclassical nonsense. I've lost my facility with arithmetic and so on the spot. But what will often happen, and I've actually set tests like this because I used to be forced to teach financial mathematics. And as part of it, they say that what a rational person does is maximize their expected return. Okay? So they'll give you a choice where, say, like you've got a 90% chance of getting $100 or a 10% chance of losing $1,000. And what you're supposed to do is multiply the numbers by the probability. So if you have like a 90%, 0.9 times 100 is 90, and 0.1 times 1,000 is minus 100. So it's minus 10, so you don't take the bet. But if you made it a 90% chance of 2,000, then you look at the two and think, oh yeah, it's worth taking the bet. Now, at that level, most people would say, yeah, fair enough. I put in $100. I've got a 10% chance of losing it, but I've got a 90% chance of making 2,000. That's a good gamble. I'll take that one. And that's where what the behavioural case and the rational case coincide. But you take other circumstances where, like, there's a 99% chance, say, of $100, so that's worth $99 on its own, and there's a 1% chance of minus 1,000. Okay, so that's like minus 100. But you can set it out, and you work out that this particular situation, the expected value is positive, so you should take the gamble. But if you look at your bank account and think, well, shit, I can't afford to lose the $1,000 today. No way, can't do it. So what happens when people then answer that question, most of them give the irrational answer, they won't take the bet. Now, the flaw of that is that, and this is what I used to teach to my students when I taught this crap back at university, was that you do not get, if you do a gamble, you do not get the expected value. You either get one or the other, okay? And therefore you've got to say, well, can I handle, it'd be nice to win a couple of $100, but if I lose 1,000, I'm wiped out, can't afford it. So the only way to make the two cases coincide is if you can do the same gambles 1,000 times. And then if you can do them 1,000 times, you will ultimately get the expected value. But only if you can repeat the experiment, you get the expected value. Now, is life something in which you can repeat the experiment? For example, I'll give a personal one. If you make the mistake of lending a family member a large amount of money, then she tries not to repay you. You do it once, you're screwed. Next time you sign a contract, make sure you don't get screwed. That doesn't happen. The next time doesn't happen. You've been screwed the first time. So life is not a repeated experience. Life is a sequence of events where the previous one has already happened and you can't change the impact that had on your bank balance. So the neoclassical case is based on what you can call subjective probability. What do I think the odds are? But it only works if it equals objective probability. This is what's going to happen because I'll repeat the bet 1,000 times. Now, the real world is not like that. So that was my way of trashing the arguments that this behavior is irrational. It was quite sensible not to risk everything you've got, okay, in those cases. And it's now been formalized by a guy called Ole Peters, who's a mathematician, a top-class mathematician in London. And he's taken this whole case and shown that even the standard, like coin toss, if you play a coin toss and you come out of heads, if you make a profit, you make heads, you lose half as much if you get tails. The vast majority of those runs over time lose money. You do a sequence. Most of them hit the, oh dear, I got a negative, I'm up a bit, oh dear, another negative, oh God, I'm wiped out, okay? Now, if you look at the statistical average, that's positive. But crazily enough, the run for the vast majority of people is negative. And so it's very sensible for most people to turn down what neoclassicals will say is the right thing to do.
Explain that coin toss thing again, because I think, over time, that's one of the quintessential, I guess, experiments for probability, just a simple coin toss, an A or a B, and over time it kind of baselines out at
it's the difference between having, like, say you have a heads and tails gamble, like, you double or nothing. Okay, that's the classic. Okay, you're betting a cent. Let's say $1. I know Americans don't actually use dollar coins, twerps that they are.
Canadians do, though.
Hey, good. Okay, they're tossing a loonie. Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, you toss a loonie and you double or nothing. So if you toss one loonie and then you get heads, you now got two loonies. Okay, and then you can toss one of those two loonies, and you might go backwards. But if you toss the loonie and it comes up tails, your loonie's gone. And you don't have any more loonies to take part in the bet. So if you go the sequence over time for the vast majority of people is negative. But if you'd had 1,000 loonies, okay, and you tossed 1,000 loonies, the odds are you're pretty damn close to getting 500 heads and 500 tails. You double your money on the 500 heads, you lose your money on the 500 tails, you come out ahead. You come out with the same, okay? In that case, okay? So you're even. And that's the basic idea of the bet. But we don't chuck 1,000 coins. We chuck them one coin in sequence. And if you then try doing this, like rather than having one person tossing 1,000 coins, imagine having a room full of 1,000 people tossing one coin each. Okay. Now, and then you do the next and the next and the next. Now, with one person tossing 1,000 coins at once, they're probably going to get 500 heads and 500 tails, come out even. Okay?
I think half of the people there would be losers, though.
Do what? Yeah. But I've actually had one of my colleagues do this. An Australian guy used to work for a major hedge fund in the Wellington Management in Boston, and he got my students to guess a number, and then if they got the number right, they stayed up, like above or below. If they got it wrong, they had to sit down. And he did it 7 times, and then finally there was one person standing. He said, "What a genius you are!" You know, the market would say how brilliant you are, because that was the one who got all the guesses right, just by sheer luck. Okay, had nothing to do with skill. Now that's the basis of it. If you get the average from that one person who was lucky enough to get 7 heads in a row, okay, statistically balances everybody else, but the rest have been wiped out, and that person has a fortune. And then when you play this game, and this is Ole Peters has quite good technical papers on this that I highly recommend people taking a look at. He calls it ergodic economics. It's actually non-ergodic economics, because ergodicity applies, and this is getting rather technical, but ergodicity applies where the space variation of something is identical to the time variation of something. So in terms of space versus time, my space example is one person tossing 1,000 coins at once. The time case is one person tossing 1,000 coins sequentially over time. That's non-ergodic. A coin toss is non-ergodic because the path you went on determines where you get to. Okay, so that's the difference. It gets quite sophisticated, but the basic story, and this is something that a post-Keynesian economist called Paul Davidson and I used to debate quite a bit, because Paul used to emphasize how important and how wrong the ergodic assumption was, but he didn't actually understand what the assumption was, technically speaking. So it's the space equals time, okay? And that's an ergodic process. But even a coin toss is non-ergodic. Now we live there. What is the real world? It's non-ergodic. So all this stuff about what's rational versus irrational behavioral finance is just wrong, because in the non-ergodic world, what neoclassics call rational is frankly irrational behavior.
Yeah, I get that. Actually, I want to call on Scott here for a minute, because he's a Kant scholar, and I just touched the surface on it. But my understanding of Kant, and correct me if I'm wrong, Scott, is that time and space were something that Kant classified as being innate, almost like sense perceptions. Is that fair to say?
He thinks that the experience of time and space is produced by the conditions of experiencing. So, for example, we're pretty sure that real physical space is not flat, 3-dimensional, but our perceptual space is flat and 3-dimensional. So even if we want to grasp Minkowski space or another type of non-Euclidean space, we're forced to fake it in a 3-dimensional flat plane. So we can't escape our perceptual apparatus, even when we theorize about 4-dimensional and higher spaces.
Yeah, I think that's very valid. I think it's quite a valid point. And that's like one reason we live in an exponential world, but we think linearly. And even people who like myself who understand exponential processes, I'll guess too low for the value of an exponential process. But people always do that. We tend to linearly extrapolate in a world which is highly nonlinear.
But going back to Steve's point, the reason that coin tosses aren't ergodic is because you could have a streak bad enough to remove all of your coins, and then you wouldn't be able to play the game anymore, and you wouldn't be able to enjoy the averaging out.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. What the lily the lily pads in the pond, that's exponential, right?
That's exponential. Yeah.
Yeah, it's always surprising how many, before the whole
Yeah, people often think it's up to day 16 it covers half the pond. No, it's day 31 on a 32-day process. It's actually better to think about like a bacteria that's invading a pond and killing everything on it. How long have you got between when it doubles and when it wipes out the entire pond? And the answer is 1 day out of your 32. And that's the climate change situation as well.
Well, yeah, let's bring it back into the climate situation before I take it over into the educational part of it. So where's your mind go on this when that the replication or the exponential replication? You're not talking about tipping points or even more of a steep curve, I would imagine, than just a straight exponential curve. Is that the case?
Well, the technical work on this is what's called a cusp catastrophe. Okay, and a guy called René Thom was a major developer of this whole idea, and that is that if you can imagine like a process which is a smooth hill, so you're coming down a smooth hill, and then what happens is you start to fold, or it's called a fold catastrophe as well. So you start having a process that pushes the cliff and the bottom closer together. So for a while you can still slide down the hill, but after a certain point, the cliff is over the ground below, and you go over the edge and you'll simply fall and crash. Okay. Funnily enough, I had a dream about that last night. Quite weird. That's what I woke up to, a dream about sliding down a hill. But yeah, so if you have a process which relies upon you being able to slide down a smooth hill, and there's another, and the time is changing the system that is moving, you will have a catastrophic outcome, not just an exponential, but a catastrophic decline.
And that's actually what we're looking for, because the timeline that we have to hit as a global community, let's say 2.5 degrees, for example. That's diminishing very quickly. And what I tried to bring up last week about the inertia, I think I had heard that there's a 0.5 degree of inertia already built into the system, so to speak. I don't know how you quantify that, but I think that, if we just shut the tap off today, we'd still have 0.5 degree of warming.
I mean, the best, the NOAA, the National Office of Atmospheric and something else in Sciences in America, has a page that lets you calculate that with different reference starting points. And when I did that for 1900, it gave 1.2 degrees Celsius as the current excess level we're at. And then with the momentum of the carbon dioxide already in the system and transferring from various sinks in which it's in, if we stop adding it, it'll still come, percolating up from some of the sinks it's currently in. That means 1.7. And that's if we stop producing carbon dioxide today. So, and according to neoclassical economists, that's cool.
Yeah, that is cool. I mean, not cool. Well, we say not cool, but that's 1.7 degrees, because they're betting on a 12 or 15 degree rise. I don't know what kind of instruments are going to be around to record that, but
the last one I saw by a bunch of neoclassical economists was catastrophic temperature warning level is 17.68 degrees above pre-industrial, and this highly sophisticated prediction came from two inputs. One is they assumed that in 1995 that a 2.5 degrees Celsius increase would cause a 2% degradation of the environment. and they assumed the damages were quadratic.
Yeah.
So if you have a pure quadratic that passes through the point 2.52, it hits 100% damages to the environment at 17.68 degrees Celsius. That's fucking laughable. I mean, I'm not going to be polite about this. Anybody who thinks that's a serious prediction is a bloody moron, or a neoclassical economist, which I think are interchangeable terms these days. So yeah, that's the sort of nonsense they're into. So the climate scientists that I speak to, they're worried about half a degree, and so we're already probably tipped the Arctic, and 2 degrees is the limit. They say that's got to be our line in the sand, and we prefer to stay at 1.5, which we've already probably lost for the momentum issues you talk about. So yeah.
Yeah, and that's the importance of your work. I mean, I'll keep reinforcing that, because I see it all over the news. I see it all over the politics. We just wrapped up our Canadian election. I think Australia is looking at an election soon. Our government didn't actually change.
Do you know I'm running for election, by the way? What do you do?
Get out of here, really?
You don't know? Okay.
No, I did.
This is a bit weird, but it's the way it's come about. There's a new party called the New Liberals, which was formed by a barrister who has been doing pro bono work for refugees, because Australia's got a draconian policy towards refugees, and they're going through courts and facing, like imagine being an Afghan refugee facing being returned to Afghanistan, and not being able to speak the language virtually, and having to represent yourself in a court case. That place was just too disgusting for Victor. So he formed a refugee law project, which has students and barristers together giving pro bono legal advice to refugees going through this process. And he finally had all he could take, like, the old Peter, what is his name? Peter from Network, Peter Finch. I can't take it anymore. I'm not going to put up with this anymore. So he formed this group and started doing it. And then talking with his friends, he said he's so disgusted by the state of politics. We have to do something about it. We need a genuine Liberal Party, not the assholes who are in power in Australia. And then he formed the New Liberal Party. And having researched economics, he approached me to be the economic advisor. And then because the party's been he was going to be the candidate in the upper house, because Australia has a proportional representation voting system for the upper house. It's a preferential vote in the lower house. So to get a representative seat, you have to be the only successful candidate in a region. But if you say 10 candidates, those 10 will each allocate their preferences to the other 9, and the first one to get knocked out, their votes then get handed on to the second person that people put on their voting slips, and then the third and fourth and fifth. So no vote is wasted in the Australian system. But you still need like about 40% of the vote. Maybe if you're lucky, you could win an electorate with 30%, but it's more likely 40% with preferential voting, because like your opponent might win, say 49%, you win 40%, but the other people who get knocked out give you 11%, and you again get 51 to 49. That's so, but it's still hard. So he's standing for the Senate. In the Senate, there are 6 senators elected per election per state, and you therefore need to get 1/7 of the vote plus 1, about 14%, 14.5% of the vote to win election. That's what he decided to stand in. But because the party has been getting quite a bit of prominence in social media, he decided to risk it and go for the representative seat that he lives in, which is North Sydney, which has voted for independence beforehand. And he then said, well, that leaves the vacant space at the top. Steve, would you like to be our prime candidate in the Senate?
Oh, good.
Holy shit, why not?
Yeah.
So yeah, but that depends on when the election is held. I've got to get back and re-register for voting, and of course that means I've got to be vaccinated. I've only had 1 vaccination shot, so it's all a question of the time. Because like the Canadian system, the Prime Minister can call the election in an opportunistic way, which is what Trudeau did.
Yeah,
it backfired on him, as you know, but that's what he did. Well, Morrison could do the same thing. He might well call the election early, but if he calls it, because he's totally on the nose right now, so we're hoping he'll call it in May, which is the last date he can do, and then by that stage, I'll be fully vaccinated, back in Australia, and able to vote and able to be a candidate.
Yeah, I don't know. I wish I do. I get this this backlash from the community, and basically it's part of like the common parlance, the feedback that I hear in our media, fellow family members, the frustration about calling such a useless election. And I think there could have been a modification in the rhetoric slightly, be more confrontational about what, like, so for example, if I was like Trudeau, if I said something like, look, guys, this is what I want to do. I am calling it early, but the reason is that I want to be able to do this, and I want a majority government because this is what I want to do. But instead it's kind of like he doesn't directly say it. And half of the campaign, the media was trying to pin him down just to get him to say that. I'm thinking it's obvious that's what he was doing. The politician just needs to say what he's doing, be more transparent. And then, we wouldn't have to, it's almost like, I don't know.
Let me give you a little funny example here. And I'll see if I can find what actually was done on Twitter this morning. Was Victor Klein, who's the guy who founded the party, and a very decent human being. So I'm quite happy to be a candidate in the party for him. But Victor made a suggestion for a slogan for the party to run on. Let's see if I can find it. You just give me a moment.
Have you told your buddy Vox about this?
Who?
Vox Day. He might be getting upset that you're.
Vox is a rational man. I mean, I got a lot of time.
He would agree with you. He'd shake your hand. He'd say, "Good job."
And so Victor put out a tweet saying, "Hey, TNL, that's the initials, TNL, the New Liberals. How about this for a TNL election slogan? Not easy, but exciting." I thought, "Oh, that's shit." I thought, "That's shit." I'm sorry, that's shit. Well, the funny thing was, one person suggested instead. Everybody panned it, but somebody said, "Truth, not lies." And I thought, that's perfect. TNL, truth, not lies. And the reality is politicians have been lying to us, and it's transparently obvious they're lying to us. They get asked a question, and they'll bloody maneuver their way around it. They never answer a straight question. They're going to a script. They try to use every media opportunity as a reason to push forward rather than engage. And people of all political persuasion, I think, are simply sick of it. And this has been a product of the nature of representative democracy with parties based on a left-right split and factionalism inside those parties.
To be honest with you, Steve, I think academics should actually move into more of a predominant role. I mean, as our education systems are producing more and more degrees, and I think there's a prominent place for scientific and academic thinkers to be in the mainstream. I really, really do. It's I think that we can wear both hats, right? I can speak science, and then I can say something that's very much to the people, and speak in rational terms, and use the the 20 years of education that that the academics have under their belt to to deliver a real teachable moment, shall we call it that, right? Like
except for economists.
Yeah, I mean, after we clean the house,
wipe out neoclassical economics, then it's
that's right. Yeah. But you might actually get, the market function actually doing a rinse and repeat. Like, I mean, if we had more of a functional system, I think, of public discourse. I think.
I've dealt with enough politicians to be extremely cynical of the nature of the personalities that go into it, and you see there are a couple of old sayings that don't vote for politicians, that only encourages them. Whoever you vote for a politician wins. Well, there's a third one. I'm trying to think of what it, but they're all right. They're true.
Yeah.
You know? And the personality types that actually decide to go into politics are, borderline or past the borderline narcissistic personality disorder types. And they're the last ones that you want to make any decisions. They get two extremes. They get ones who are narcissists but paralyzed about the fear of making a mistake, so they never make a decision and they become log jams, or they've got that total confidence of the what's the syndrome, the Dunning-Kruger effect, where they're convinced they're right and they barge on regardless. And either extreme is disastrous. Now, the one advantage of academic training outside being trained in economics is you know what you don't know. Okay? So any genuine scientist is aware of the areas that they're not confident on in their own theory, and they are more likely to apply a degree of reason and wisdom to a situation than somebody who comes through a political party. But at the same time, they're the people who are repulsed by political parties. So, we have to find some, there should be, there isn't, there probably never will be, but there needs to be a mechanism that enables people to be selected for their wisdom rather than for their ambition.
And with the nostalgia that the Americans feel for the fascism that they never had, they hate to see consideration, reflection, or uncertainty. They want to see the testosterone and the trustworthiness of the fellow sociopath by acting 100% confident about something you have no idea about. It's just attractive. Yeah. I mean, we're so cynical now and anti-intellectual that we'll vote for the evilest, corruptest person because it's kind of refreshing to see the misanthropy, because we're misanthropes and we want to see that reflected in our politicians.
Yeah, it's bizarre, isn't it? I mean, like if you ever read I've actually heard the transcripts of Johnson, LBJ, when he was making the decision to go into the Vietnam War. And he literally did say that, we don't know what the hell's happening over there, but we better do something. And that was the basis of the Bay of Tonkin incident that led to the catastrophic Vietnam War. And again, that man tried to kill my daddy, which is a quote from George Bush about Saddam Hussein. It's incredible how stupid the decision-making has been.
Yeah, rightfully so. Or not rightfully so. That's a shame that we can't live in a more progressive...
Shamefully so, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I wanted to actually talk a little bit about an idea that I had for some course development.
Okay. I'll make my coffee while you talk. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So what I'm hoping to do is to bring Steve kind of a baseline framework for an entry-level macroeconomics course. Okay. Now this would be our baseline, our control. And I'd imagine that the Keen version of this is going to be much different than standard economic courses that we would see in traditional institutions. So that's the bottom-up approach to offer something that I would say is more like an enthusiast or an undergraduate level course. Okay. Mm-hmm. Now, from the top down, this is the thing that I think would be really interesting, is that I'm imagining asking Steve a question related to economics that would be worthy of a PhD thesis, for example. Okay, so if you had somebody that wanted to study under Steve, and they came to you, Steve, and they said, "Well, Steve, I think we could." Take your economic models and we could roll them out into, this type of a platform, or here's how we could apply it. Steve would make the process. You'd process the question. And you'd think, well, is this valid enough for a contribution to the economic, to the community, right? Like, would I endorse this student based off of that thesis? And what I'd like to see is some really good plural of theses, come out of this kind of a discussion, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's it's a feasible way to go about it. I mean, you ask questions and find sensible answers. I think you also need an overall paradigm to be put forward, and that's when my paradigm would come out of my revised classical economics based on Marx's dialectics, combined with energy thermodynamics coming out of the physiocrats, and then complex systems modeling. That's what I'd like to get together, and fundamentally ending up with a system dynamics approach to the economy and its interaction with the ecology. That's what I'd prefer to do, putting a whole thing together. I mean, I like the questioning approach is great in some ways, but the trouble is it's very, you can never package it. You're always with another question, another question, another question. And if you're going to do it well, it takes a long time to answer each question, and therefore you're working non-stop writing the course. Whereas what I want to do ultimately is have something which is a cohesive statement of a paradigm. And then once that's finished, I can finally retire and let other people develop that paradigm. That's more what I'd like to achieve.
Okay, so if I'm hearing you right, the entry level sort of economics course is we move away from that. The course that you're describing almost feels like an advanced enthusiast plus probably like some post-grad work.
It could be something which could be, I mean, we've got to find a way to popularize it as well. And I agree on that front. The trouble is, if you don't get a new paradigm, then you're forever asking questions which are based on the old paradigm. Mm-hmm. Now imagine, Copernicus or Galileo trying the same approach back when most people believed that the Ptolemaic vision of the universe. And the question would always be, then why do things fall to the ground?
Yeah.
And you kind of think, well, this is because of a thing we're calling gravity, and and then the next question, well, why do the heavens decay then? Why do the heavens decay? Yeah. And so you'd find yourself, oh, for God's sake. Like I must admit, like I find myself in a situation right now because like I'm writing a housing policy for this new party, the New Liberals in Australia. And in writing it, I've got to spend my whole time saying what you've been taught is nonsense, what you've been taught is wrong. This is a great way. Now, would it be far better if people actually got the grounding initially in saying, this is a sound foundation, here are the policies based on that foundation.
Yeah.
And frankly, it's exhausting. And like I spent most of yesterday thinking, oh, Jesus, how do I rewrite this effing thing? And I feel like I woke up this morning, I've just got to dive in there and say, look, what you've been taught is wrong. But it's a debilitating process over time.
Okay, well, I have a possible working plan. Okay, and I think this will resonate with you.
Yeah.
The Santa Fe Institute, they're very progressive in terms of online courses. They're very much involved with complexity theory. So what happens if we put a team together on this, right? Like a tight team of maybe 3. And I'm imagining the spokes in a wheel, and I'm thinking, you've got yourself talking about economics and the new paradigm, maybe kind of like the lead on it. But then there is going to be team members, maybe somebody that's good in complexity theory. Not saying you're.
I've mentioned Ole Peters earlier in the talk, so Ole would be, to me, an obvious nomination.
Okay.
One of those folks. And then you'd need people from climate. So my first nomination would be Tim Lenton. So like I can think of people to pull together to make that sort of, and you need a biophysical approach to economics. So Charlie Hall or Victor, how have you used his name? I can't think of his name right now, but the energy writer. But yeah, you'd need a range of people to pull together.
Well, I'll definitely go and take a stab at it to try and organize this kind of a group, because I think we have a recipe for something that's very valuable and important. Not to mention the fact that if it was the Santa Fe that picked it up, they have a good distribution network. And what are your thoughts on Santa Fe? Was that something that you thought of as a possibility to get involved with? I mean, and there'd be other ones too, right? But
I had all of Santa Fe's books at one point when they first came together. And like Brian Arthur did some very, very good work there. Again, but it became dominated by the multi-agent modeling approach, which is one approach you can choose. I prefer system dynamics as my approach to modeling the economy over multi-agent for a whole range of reasons. But they did some very good work on that front. And then they've continued pumping out decent research. They still have decent summer schools and so on. But they haven't, I was reading when I was doing my PhD and master's thesis, and that's over 30 years ago. So they haven't shaken the precipice yet. They've become an important non-orthodox element, but they haven't shaken the foundations of the orthodoxy. So
at least in that area, yeah. So
it's a worthwhile bunch to think of. There are like INET, the same story. I mean, I've had very good relation with INET in the past, reasonable at the moment, not so crash hot at sometimes in the past. But INET's become part of the background. It's still very good. It does good work without a doubt. It's hard to say. I mean, you might need a consortium of these backers rather than just one.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Interesting. And I don't know what the plans are for, you take the Club of Rome, for example. We were just talking about it last week. Well, I mean, they commissioned that one particular book, that landmark watershed book about the limits to growth. Maybe they'd be interested,
Well, I'm on one of their advisory panels. So, and they're trying to produce a new one now, a new report, which Randers, one of the three authors, is putting together. But again, the whole hassle there is resources. The Club of Rome, they had an incredible impact in the public arena, but it was destroyed by fucking Nordhaus in the economic circles and trashed and rubbished, disparaged by economists who never actually read the damn thing and don't know the model behind it. And so what the end result of that is that when they first did their work, they were basically at the MIT, they had world-class computing facilities, a substantial research team behind them, lots of research assistants and so on. Now Randers is struggling to find one research assistant, and he's doing the work on a laptop.
Oh, right. Okay, yeah.
It just disgusts me that the amount of money we've wasted thrown at neoclassical economics over the last 50 years, whereas the really decent work is literally down at the stage to one old bloke, older than me, with a laptop and a research assistant. And on that front, he's ahead of me because I don't have a research assistant.
Yeah, well, I actually invited him to the show. I haven't heard from him, but
I'll drop him a line as well.
Yeah, I mean, spread the love anywhere, because we'd love to have more stimulating conversations that come onto this platform. Anyways, while I'm on that thought thread, I wanted to change up the feeling of the show a little bit. We're about 12, 13 shows into the we have 12, 13 shows. Mm-hmm. We might be very close to doing live events. Okay. And the live event, we have a couple options here. We can pre-record it just like this, and then we can make a live event. Yeah. Or we could actually just go live and try and bring people into the environment. So there's kind of like some discussion that can happen around, whether we pre-record and then put it out as live, or, how we kind of get that type of thing moving. What would your intuition tell you on that?
Well, I mean, one thing I should be doing that on the Patreon panel, and I haven't been, partly because I'm just a one-man show. I want to spend as much of my time as I can getting research done and publications written. So if you were wanting to give it a crack at the genuine live, then I'd be very happy to give that a try.
And it's something that can be like in the Patreon, right? It's a real incentive to people to, although they could just go onto YouTube and see it live.
you consider that. I've taken a look at it. I mean, if you'd like, mate, I mean, of course, I trust you after the dealings we've had. I could give you access to my Patreon site and then have you set up the live channel, and it actually uses either use Vimeo or Vimeo or YouTube. And when it uses YouTube, then it can be accessed by anybody, not just patrons.
Oh, right. I could probably even make it. Yeah, I will have a look around in there, and I'll get something set up. Okay, and then here's the last decision that I want you to make. We're gonna spread the word in a multitude of different ways, right? And so this one I'm a little bit sheepish of, but I'm thinking we could have some fun with it. And I'm about 50-50. Back to the coin toss on this one.
Okay. So
it's merchandise, right? And as a fellow greener, right? Tree hugger and this type of thing. I'm kind of like, do we need more stuff that we send people on airplanes with the fossil fuels, right? But
that's the only reason that I can think of a good reason to have an NFT, a non-fungible token, because that's merchandise without merchandise in a sense. I laugh about NFTs. It's the ultimate expression of a subjective vision of value. That people pay money for this stuff. But if you wanted to get some sort of non-fungible token, digital thing to be sent around, then that gets over the carbon issue.
Yeah, we could do that, but you'd lose the opportunity. And you got to imagine this: it's a merchandise, so it's all shirts or like hoodies or all these kind of things, right? And we gotta play with the idea of I'm a keener, right? Because
okay, well, I've actually done that once.
You must have done it. Of course you have, right?
Okay. Yeah. I've got to find where I've stored it, because this is back in the days when I was in Australia, and I got rigged into a bet over house prices. It was a con job. I realised after a while that I'd been shafted by the property lobby. And I knew I was going to lose the vote, because the way they defined the vote and the fact that the Australian government had yet again boosted house prices with a first home owners scheme that I call a first home buyer scheme that I call the first home vendors scheme. I did a walk to Kosciuszko, and part of it I was supposed to wear a T-shirt. I thought, okay, I'll wear a T-shirt. And the T-shirt I designed had all my graphs about, excessive housing debt and all that sort of jazz on it. And I ended up on page 3, I think, of the national newspaper when we got to the top of the mountain. So I made T-shirts once, and also the T-shirts for Minsky.
Okay, yeah. Well, we could do that. I'm just thinking if we could have a whole, like a club of keeners, it might be it's so ridiculous and funny that it actually might catch on. Like, there's no predictability to this. We're already talking about complex systems. We're saying, we have no idea if it's going to be sticky.
Yep.
And it's funny and we can make fun of it. It's like,
it's worth a go. I'm definitely not arguing against it. Give it a try. So I'm just looking through if I can find some of the stuff on the T-shirts, but I haven't actually.
Make it a design contest. Like, Scott's a good design guy, right? I mean, but make it a design contest. We're looking for someone to design submit your ideas or something like that. I don't know, right?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, like to minimize the carbon issues, you can use print on demand, of course.
Yeah.
And if there are 3D objects rather than T-shirts, then there's the possibility as well of 3D. I don't know if anybody does 3D printing on demand, but surely somebody does. There must be.
The local public library has a free access 3D printer. No one uses it. It's incredible. So you can walk in here with your blueprints, and you can design a Warhammer competition game and then walk out and sell it. I can't believe they don't charge.
Wow. Okay, that's pretty cool. So yeah, give it a try, definitely.
Scott, did you just get volunteered for making some stuff at the 3D printer in Texas there? I think he just got volunteered for something.
Well, I haven't read the fine print. I don't know if they would be upset if I walked out with boxes of tiny things that I was going to do something with. I think it's for the children to understand the translation process between blueprint and object, and so they get to witness the translation. I think that's what it's for.
Well, yeah, we wouldn't want to game the system there. I mean, that doesn't happen in economics, right, Steve? People don't game the system. No, we don't have to put.
Yeah,
it's all just
But I think those 3D printers are incredibly cheap, aren't they? They're the same price as printers. They're
getting just if you're using plastic, they're getting much cheaper. If you want to print a house or print 3D parts for a rocket, they're a bit more expensive. But yeah, the stuff you can have as fun back at home, they're getting very cheap. I almost bought one because I wanted to print like the I'm just see if I can find that again as well. It's actually a 4D model, but it's actually genuinely 3D. But my model of Minsky's financial instability hypothesis with the government generates what I call the toilet bowl in space. Ever seen that? I'm sorry.
Sounds like a strange attractor.
Yeah, it's actually, funnily enough, it's not chaotic. That's one thing I'm quite surprised by. When I analysed it mathematically, it wasn't chaotic. There was a standard attractor rather than a chaotic attractor inside it. But it was the three-dimensional toilet bowl, and it's quite a beautiful shape. It's what we use as the logo for Minsky. If you look at Minsky's logo when you load it. Oh, actually, no, the old logo. I think we've changed it now. But that's a beautiful object. I'd love to print that in 3D one day. You guys chat amongst yourself. I'll see if I can find it.
How did you find how do you tell in an attractor whether it's chaotic? I don't understand. How do you mathematically do that roughly?
Well, it's involved what's called the Lyapunov exponent. You don't want me to try to explain that live.
Okay.
I've forgotten my mathematics. I know the basic concept, but I can no longer do the mathematics for it. I have to reteach myself. Spending all my time pulling apart neoclassical garbage has meant that I've forgotten the practical mathematics that I need to do this sort of thing. But if you like, I'll give you the Lorenz attractor. That's in fact, why don't I can bring the Lorenz attractor up on screen. Why don't I do that? Because it's a beautiful piece of graphics. I'll just actually find it. Hang on a second. And that'll give you an idea of what I'm talking about, and I can talk to the Lorenz model. Here we go. Okay, this will only be a 2D manifestation of it, but it's actually a 3D object. So okay, we've got it here, and I'm running it, and now I'll just go across and share my screen. Hang on, here we go. We're getting a little error they've got to show to Russell in Minsky. But that's the Lorenz attractor was a brilliant piece of mathematics by Lorenz where he reduced Edward Lorenz, who was a mathematical meteorologist who was dissatisfied with the lot of linear models of weather that were mainstream back in the 60s, 50s and 60s. And he said the important things are nonlinear. So he took what's called the Navier-Stokes equations and then simplified them and simplified them and simplified them until they're only three-dimensional. And then I'll cut to the short story. We've had a lot of time left with three-dimensional object. And he plotted it, and what he saw is the sort of behavior you can see up the top here. These ups and downs here, where it was simply impossible to predict which way it was going to move next. Like this one's going down now. Now it's going up. Will it go down again? No, it goes back up again, et cetera, et cetera. So he couldn't predict it, and he called that chaotic. And then he printed it in 3D, and this is what you can see down the bottom. And that's actually a three-dimensional object. It's like a two-dimensional projection of it because you're only seeing it in a two-dimensional shape. But it's circling two what are called attractors. And these attractors, you can see it starts just here. One of the attractors is here. Actually, I think the attractor is actually just slightly away from this point here. Another attractor is here, and the third one is here, okay? And they're all repel rather than attract. That's why they're called strange attractors. So one of them attracts along one dimension and repels along another two. And the other two attract along one dimension and cause cyclical behavior along the other two. And so the equilibria of the system, there are three, 1, 2, 3. The equilibrium, so with the third one, the equilibrium is just here. Well, it's 0, 0, 0 is an equilibrium. And then there's these two off here, which are either it's minus 10 and plus 10. Mm-hmm. So they're basically, like the square root of 4 is plus or minus 2, okay? So
right.
That's the two roots, okay? And what you get is this one repels, and so it gets driven towards either of these two. When you're a substantial distance away, they will attract in. But as you get closer, what's called the dominant eigenvalue, or the real part of the dominant eigenvalue, gets and pushes it away again, and then it cycles infinitely between the two. And what you get looks like a butterfly, and that's where the idea of a butterfly effect came from.
Oh.
Okay. And mine is that's chaotic. So each of those, and the pattern will never repeat. And if you have a tiny deviation from where you start, then you will get infinite deviations over time. Like if your point 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0 wrong, or 0, 0, 1 wrong about where you're actually starting from, then in a finite amount of time, you will have absolutely no information about where the system will go the next time. That's why you can only forecast the weather for a short period ahead, because you lose information about your forecast loses information about the state it's trying to predict at an exponential rate, and then it becomes infinitely wrong. Now, with a model which is non-chaotic, that doesn't happen. So you can start from any particular set of initial conditions. You will converge to a limit cycle, which is the same independent of the initial conditions. So my model is actually of the latter type rather than the former when I include the government. When there's not government, then it's chaotic in the Lorenz sense.
Let me ask a real interesting question, coming back to, the post-Keynesian economics and the way you envision it. Would you then say that the economics under your paradigm does not have an equilibrium to it at all?
It doesn't have a stable equilibrium.
Okay.
Okay. And then when you include energy and ergodicity and thermodynamics inside, there's no equilibrium at all. Mm-hmm. I mean, the only reason we exist is we're in a far from equilibrium system. We're copying oodles of power from the sun, and dissipating that energy from the sun is what's given rise to life. We don't know how it did it. Actually, we're getting closer to understanding how life first came about. That's some fascinating research in biology at the moment. I've forgotten the actual reason, but I've got a copy of the paper where the scientists believe that they may have found the mechanism that triggered autocatalytic behavior that gave us the first single cellular organisms. Quite remarkable research. Okay, but if it wasn't for the sun's energy, we wouldn't exist. And what we do with the sun's energy is we actually enhance the second law of thermodynamics, in that life causes a faster dissipation of energy and a faster degradation of order than would happen without life. The benefit that life maintains order while it causes more disorder elsewhere. So that sort of background is what we'd need for thinking about the economy. So equilibrium would become a footnote, not the exclamation mark, which is what it is in neoclassical economics.
Well said. Even with 3 minutes to spare, I want to thank you, Steve, for spending another hour with us. Scott, my friend, did you have anything that you want to ask Steve in closing very quickly?
Nope.
That's a quick close.
Okay, Steve, until next week. Thanks again.
Thank you. Okay, bye, guys.
Bye.